So you're saying that Bitcoin is a protocol, and correct me here. Bitcoin is a protocol that allows anyone to access money, sound money, deflationary money.
And so instead of saying deflationary money,
Okay.
say say stable money that measures deflation.
Okay.
Right. Right. So deflation is the output of a free market. Right. If the money's stable, that's what you would see. If the money's unstable, then you see inflation.
Love it. And Bitcoin is a protocol that allows people to have access to that in a very similar way that the internet is a set of protocols that allow people to access information. Is that a
Yes.
fair? Okay.
If exactly fair. Now, the internet, but today the internet has largely been consolidated, right? So what ends up happening is if your voice is against the system, you get shut off. When you do KYC at a bank and then you try to get your money out of the bank, you might not know what's going to happen in the US. It's going to happen in the US. Look at different countries where somebody is against the dictator and the control of money and information is in the dictator, and see what happens to the people that stand up to a dictator. And they're always shut off, and their bank accounts are shut off, and it always looks the same. So if money is broken, money is subordinate to laws. So if it if it didn't look like that, then in the worst money places where money was really broken, the laws would be protecting people. So if money is broken, laws get changed to protect the money printers. And that's what you're seeing today. And you're seeing it more and more today. And you have to have something that exists outside of that to protect yourself from what's coming.
And so another thing that I want to make sure we touch on is gold. So
Yeah.
have you had the chance to talk to Peter Schiff at all? Has that debate happened yet?
So I haven't. It just he tries to. He's asked but he tries to each Bitcoiner. But again, it's just, and I have nothing against him. It's more of a shtick. It's more of a show.
Right.
Um. So, how do you get more visibility on the thing you care about? I have nothing against gold, but it worked for 5,000 years as a reasonable store of value, and just like I don't have nothing against horses for transportation, but I don't ride a horse or anymore. Right? Something moves on and delivers better value to do the same thing, and so the difference here is a protocol emerges, and as more people use the protocol and it stays decentralized and secure, it can't centralize. So gold, because it centralizes. So in 1933, people held gold, but the government would have gone broke. So they created a new law that you can't hold gold. So they changed the rules of gold, and in the U.S. Same thing happened in 1971, where we're going to revalue gold because we don't have enough of it to pay our bills. So we're going to change the rules on the underlying structure. Humans will change the rules. And if you have a human in the loop because something centralizes, you can't move gold around like I can move Bitcoin around. I can spend my Bitcoin anywhere in the world right now in an instant, and nobody can stop me. I can carry it on a plane with words in my head, and nobody can stop me. And I can't do that with a bag of gold, right? And lumbering around and saying, "Oh, I want an ice cream cone, and I'm going to shave off pieces of gold." It doesn't work, right? And I realized it did work. The best thing to hold humans to an anchor. To essentially, it was a proof of work. There's limited gold on there, and the proof of work. You have to mine it to hold it to an anchor. So I understand a past analogy of why people like gold, but it didn't work to hold a truthful system in the world.
And the reason for that is because it centralizes, and then the rules around how gold is actually used in the system can be changed.
Exactly.
Whereas with
Exactly.
Bitcoin,
Yeah.
that's not the case.
But aren't
Not the
they?
case. Now,
Isn't that happening now though?
So this is now, how far down the rabbit hole, how deep do we want to go here, right? And so uh, Ben and Keith, do you know in block size wars in 2017 what happened?
Nope.
No, I do not.
If you're enjoying this, this was actually taken out of a piece of our live stream where we go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. If you want to see the full version of this episode, you can click the link in the description down below. But for now, back to the clip.
Okay, so this is and again, part of 15,000 hours and spending time and being in here for a long time. What happened there is there was something called the Montreal Accord, and all of the big money at that time wanted big blocks in Bitcoin. And why is because you could cram more transactions in the big blocks. But the output of that, when you went against the nodes, so the nodes, people who are running nodes, the output of that would be centralization. Because when you really looked at the computer science of that, if you increase the node size, then the cost to run all the transactions, to have an entire blockchain on a node, explodes, and very few people can afford the cost to run the node. So less validators, there's less nodes, and it centralizes. So there was a huge fight in 2017, and the money wanted one thing, and the plebs, the people who the heart and soul of this, essentially said, "Fuck off," right? that my node's not changing. And what it did is it created a hard fork in Bitcoin. And the money said, we're doing it anyway. And so there, at that time, you would have got one Bitcoin Cash. You would have got one and kept your Bitcoin. You would have got one of each. And so what happened is the money all went to effectively zero, right? Or you could look at the price of it today, and Bitcoin just kept on going. And what it showed is the money never controls Bitcoin. You have one vote if you run one node. Your voice matters. And if you have 1 million Bitcoin, you don't have any more vote than the person who has a hundredth of a Bitcoin. So it changes the rules dramatically from what the world we've always looked at to a world that is looking different, that the control is essentially in the intransigent minority that cares about this deeply. But this is, I said why we're going deeper on this. If you were governments today and you knew you couldn't kill this, that every time you tried, China tried, other governments have tried, you could say, Bitcoin bad for the environment. Is governments trying to stop this? It's only drug money. It's all different ideas to try to stop this, and it's moving around the world at lightning fast pace. It's growing exponentially. It's on a network effect. If you couldn't stop it, what would you do? You'd try to co-opt it. You try to co-opt it to exactly what you're saying. You'd say, I'm going to regulate the rails onto this. I'm going to get people to not use Bitcoin. I'm going to get them to use a stable coin. I'm going to regulate all of these rails so it's easy to use. And I'm going to attract more and more Bitcoin into centralized custodians, Coinbase, BlackRock, other centralized. I'm going to get them to think they own Bitcoin, but they own an ETF of Bitcoin. And one thing about Bitcoin is people will say, not your keys, not your coins. If you trust your keys to somebody else, it's not your Bitcoin. It's a derivative claim to a Bitcoin. It's a claim to a Bitcoin that you're trusting somebody else. But we're so used to that trust in banks, even though we know banks are, it's an inflationary system that's stealing our money. We're so used to that. They build institutions to protect it. So when we walk in, we feel that they're not stealing our money, but they're stealing our money. And so most people will fall into that trap. And that Bitcoin, what you're saying is the number of Bitcoin will be centralized because a lot of people will use the ETFs as a proxy for Bitcoin and use these centralized exchanges as proxies for Bitcoin. But now just play that forward. And there's what is very likely to happen. If the nodes still control Bitcoin, and now there's new tools on top of Bitcoin and different layers that add complete privacy to Bitcoin. So all your transactions completely private, and you can hold Bitcoin privately. And that continues on. And then one day, this system that centralizes says, you can only use our Bitcoin, what's going to happen? It's going to chain split. And the Bitcoin that I just described, same thing that happened in 2017, will keep going on. And the people that try to control Bitcoin will probably go to zero. Now, if you have your Bitcoin that you think is Bitcoin inside that other system, then you're probably going to zero too.
If that Bitcoin exists in that other system over there, wouldn't that system still have their way of being able to manipulate that version of the Bitcoin?
Yes, but only that version. And so that's what I'm getting at. You live in, so the version of reality you live in right now from a system that is manipulating money is a version of reality that feeds back at you, and it can go on for a long time. Your belief in it gives it power. Bitcoin is bound by physics. It's bound to energy. It's bound by a system of that has no ruler. And so all of this is fighting that system. And so if everybody just said, okay, forget it, we're going to just trust the US dollar derivative of Bitcoin, Bitcoin would fail, and it would centralize, and it would fail. And I think and it's a reasonable expectation from a view that most people have today that that's what's going to happen, because that's always happened in history from any centralized thing underneath money. And we're used to, why do you need something underneath money? Is because you've never been able to trust money.
Mhm.
And that it's crazy.
Very true.
You couldn't store your money in money, so you had to store your money in something else underneath money because money has always been broken. But
Yeah.
but Bitcoin gives us as a different model, a totally different model, and that's why it's so hard to understand. You can store your money in money now, and you can be a node in that network that protects you and everybody else that you know from storing your money in money and spending your money in money, and nobody can do anything about it. Now, they're going to try, but you don't have to play the game. You don't have to play the game at all.
So one of the biggest fighting points that people have for why they wouldn't touch Bitcoin is people will say stuff like this. So from Brojo in the chat says, Bitcoin could be a CIA psyop for all you know. How do you respond to stuff like that?
So if there was a backdoor in it, there isn't a backdoor in it. I run the code. And so why would the CIA, if you knew some of the things I know about how the money system works and how many people are trying to break through Bitcoin and how many of that group or NSA and stuff to come to me to try to how is their way, so you would know the fear versus what this is. I run the code. I run the code myself. I know there's no backdoor. If the CIA did this and the CIA is funded, where does the money come from? Do you see it in the in the balance sheet of the federal government? Where does the money come from for all these black op programs? It comes from this theft. Why would the CIA create the thing that takes away the CIA? Now, if they did, it, if they did, but it got out of hand, where the community controls it, and they know it's resilient to anything, how could they stop it anyways? So even if it was created by the CIA, today the CIA has no power over it. Zero.
Hey, you made it to the end of the clip. That means you're probably enjoying this. And if so, just know that you can catch us live every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to see the full version of this episode, you can click the link in the description down below. Otherwise, YouTube thinks that you will enjoy this next.